Welcome back. He's now in studio, the former Minister with Responsibility for Tourism, former Member of Parliament for Anse la Raye, Canaires, now the leader of opposition business in the upper chamber of the House of Assembly, the St. Lucia Senate. Mr. Dominic Fedee, welcome to our platform.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Thank you for having me. Good morning to your viewers. I want to, first off the bat, congratulate you for such a well put together show. I know that you worked very hard on this. So congratulations, and it's good to see the contribution you're making to journalism and broadcasting in general.
Thank you, and thanks for accepting the invitation. Quite a lot to talk about in such limited time. Let's start off. So 13 months now since the meeting office. On the lighter note, how much do you miss the day-to-day run-ins of government, and in particular, how much do you miss representing the people of Anse la Raye, Canaires?
Well, I miss it very much. I still keep in touch with the people of Anse la Raye, Canaires. I continue to visit various parts of the constituency. The first thing they say is they're not seeing the present rep, but that's for another show. It is for him to describe why the people of the constituency are not seeing him. I get a lot of time, though, to spend with family during this downtime. There are books I wanted to read. There are things I wanted to do in life, and I'm using this opportunity to be able to do it, but not taking my eyes off the politics. Obviously very involved with what's happening in the UWP and very involved with what's happening in the Anse la Raye, Canaires side of things as well.
Excellent. Nice jump off the discussion. I know, although you've taken a back step in terms of the run-ins of government, you're quite familiar and quite aware with what's happening here on the island.
And enjoy being in the Senate as well. I forgot that part.
Absolutely. News just coming in this morning, another homicide on the island, now taking a toll to 43, worrisome for many. Do you get a clear indication that there is a clear approach, a vision, a policy to deal with crime from the present administration?
Well, I want to preface my comments this way. None of us really can take any credit for overcoming the crime situation, which I think has been perennial for the last 20 years. You've had different prime ministers that have struggled, different administrations, different police commissioners, different PSs in the Ministry of National Security and Home Affairs. And they've all, from time to time, struggled with this, whether the country was dealing with the fallout from impacts, not having the requisite training, to some of our ammunition and the cooperation that you need from the U.S. authorities or international friends. However, what I'm going to say is that this is the worst I've seen a government try to overcome this peril. So I don't take an issue with the fact that this is a perennial problem, but what I do find that is extremely problematic is how this administration has dealt with it. There has been a lack of leadership, a lack of decisiveness, and clearly when you look at how they've done it, it's business as usual. Whilst our young men mostly are dying every single day, and our country is becoming unsafe. Our people are feeling very anxious and nervous about this situation, and the administration is just carrying on as if things are great. But what I find quite revealing is whenever the press would ask the Prime Minister questions about the crime situation, never seems to take charge. Always says the police needs to do more. It always seems to pass the buck. Always refers to legislation that he would have passed. But legislation alone cannot seal the deal. Take, for example, this government's approach to stiffening the penalties for firearms. But what they have done is that they've gone ahead and institute a board. So if you want to apply for a firearm, the police commissioner would be the individual that would make that approval. And that would be following investigations by the Special Branch Department of the police force. So you would have had a rigorous investigation done by the police. Now they have instituted a board to make that decision. And guess who's choosing the board? The politicians, the cabinet is choosing who the board members are. And those board members, there are no specified background that they must have. So just imagine a political crony that the Labour Party may feel comfortable with could all of a sudden appear to be on a board to approve firearms in our country at a time like this, when people are finding it extremely untenable, the crime situation. So these are the issues. This is just an example of when I talk about how the government has mismanaged this already bad situation. You know, the Speaker of the House on his show has called for there to be some kind of partial state of emergency because he has recognized that there needs to be something extraordinary done to send a clear message that we have zero tolerance for crime in this country, and we need to embolden confidence in the people of St. Lucia that our government is working for us, our government is on top of this situation, and it is dealing with this situation in a way that the people of St. Lucia would return to safety.
Mm-hmm. Listening to you, I'm sure a lot of the viewers would appreciate that you're saying there is need for stronger leadership to confront the crime situation. From you, off the bat, what are two recommendations you think can be imposed to see some improvement in the situation here?
Well, I've just given you the first one. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a holistic approach to crime. We've all agreed on that. So you have to ensure that there is a strong and effective economy. When you look at the youth unemployment rate, it's 38%. It means that you have a significant number of young people that are idle, that are feeling frustrated, that have nothing to do, that believe that the system has wronged them, that don't feel like they are part of what's going on in St. Lucia. And so what we have to do is to rectify the situation. So first of all is to have a fast tracking of opportunities for young people, be very targeted, especially in crime hotspot areas where the root of the crime is coming from. There needs to be some, need to take a look at the family structure in St. Lucia. It starts from there as well. We need to work with our social groups to ensure. Now, the solutions have all been articulated. Where I believe we have a problem is the whole issue of implementation. So when I look at this government, there's no command center for dealing with this. There's no national approach. There's no signal that we are in a difficult time. And so therefore, we need to band together and harness the best talents of the civil service and other civil society groups so that we can deal with this situation. So there needs to be a sense of urgency that we can deal with this now, and we can overcome the crime situation.
43 as we stand now, homicides, one ahead of the same period last year. There's need for perhaps the current administration to seriously say, gentlemen on the other aisle in the opposition, let us come together seriously and have a discussion, share recommendations, ideas on how we...
Like our former Minister of National Security had done. We had a national crime symposium where we invited the opposition for dialogue, because this is not an issue where you can politicize it. It affects all of us, whether we support UWP or SLP. We have to all band together to ensure that this issue is rectified. What comes to mind as well, when I think of the whole backlog of cases, and the slow pace at which justice is served, that is another impediment to crime. And for years as well, we have dealt with not having access to international help because of impacts. And that would have affected the ability of any administration to curtail the crime situation in the country, because we just don't have the resources on our own. But what we do have is a will, a collective will, and we must enforce that collective will, and we must send a very clear signal that there is zero tolerance for violence of any form against any one of our citizens.
Let's dovetail slightly, Senator. The special prosecutor's bill was recently passed in the House, intention by the government to stamp out white-collar crime. First, your reactions to that approach by the state, and any concerns there?
Obvious political witch hunt. The government has signaled its intentions clear. When you look at the narrative, they have basically said that they're coming for some former UWP ministers. As much as the Prime Minister tries to suggest that this is not a political witch hunt, it is. Because when you listen to him in his rebuttal and you listen to his introductory statement and how he has presented the bill, it's been absolutely one-sided and lopsided. But I would say to this government that you need to start with your own cabinet. There are very unsavory characters within the cabinet of the St. Lucia Labour Party that the government must take a hard look at itself, look very deeply in the mirror, and ask itself whether it has the moral authority to make any pronouncement, much less to investigate corruption. Because, I mean, look, let's look at some personal examples. You know the history of the St. Lucia Labour Party regarding a certain government minister and the revocation of his visa. The SLP, all of a sudden, you have changed your minds about ministers qualifying to serve without a visa. What are the reasons for the revocation of the visa? What has the United States told you since coming into office? Why is it that that minister is only given a 7-day pass, for example, to go to the United States? Then you have the whole question of the security contract in the market, where the attaché of the same sitting minister is a director on a company that has the contract for the security in the vendor's arcade, where you've got several of the security officers who are working there. They have just been displaced and fired unceremoniously. We see what's happening at the National Housing Board, unprecedented resignations. I think that they've got their hands full. But you've got outstanding matters of ministers involving in all kinds of stuff. You know, the Marigold playing field is a dressing room there where it was built for, I think, $375,000. And the company that had the contract was the then sitting government senator, Joachim Henry, who is now a minister in this administration. The company is called Adar Inc. Let's investigate whether this is proper. Let's investigate whether the minister or the, at the time, senator would have violated the, the Integrity in Public Life Act, which governs the Integrity Commission. So the other thing that I find is very strange is, and then the lawyers must tell us, is whether the public prosecutor bill, whether this is constitutional. When you read section 73 of the Constitution, you clearly see that there's going to be some collision between the Director of Public Prosecution, who is responsible, in one of the sections it says, for investigating any individual on any matter, public or criminal or civil. So therefore, it tells me that this is rubber stamping. The government had the option of beefing up the DPP's office, which we know has been crying for starved resources over a number of years. But they chose to go in a different direction. Now, when you look at how the public prosecutor is appointed, you have that the Legal and Judicial Services Commission will consult the Attorney General. Now, why should the Legal and Judicial Services Commission consult the Attorney General? It should be the Legal and Judicial Services Commission appoint the public prosecutor or appoint any member for that matter, so that you have a proper separation of the executive and the judiciary in our democracy. So I think that this undermines the pillars upon which our democracy stands. I believe there's a certain level of unconstitutionality about this particular issue, and I believe that this is clearly political. Now, I want to quote one of the MPs on the government side in the lower house. And what they clearly said was something very insightful and interesting. They said that their supporters are putting pressure on them to institute the public prosecutor. Now, you ought not to legislate because your supporters are putting pressure on you. This is too important a matter. I want to say that the United Workers' Party, we do support any matter that is going to help to clean up government, to make government, as we say in local parlance, to make government straight, to make sure that the people of St. Lucia are getting the best returns for their tax dollars, and that public officials and public officers are dispensing and managing those resources in a fair manner, without partiality, without any unclear lines, or with the highest degree of accountability and transparency. I am all for that. But what I am not for is a process that is going to be political, a process that is suspect as it relates to its constitutionality. What is interesting is that during the lower house debate, the MP for Vieux-Fort South, who is very versed in constitutional matters, didn't really speak on the bill. And I'm just wondering whether his absence would mean that he may be of a different opinion from the government in terms of its approach as far as the public prosecutor is concerned. But that's not a question for me, that's for him to answer. But I found it strikingly strange that he did not comment on the debate. So that is something that we must continue to monitor to see how this is going to unfold. But this is a clear political witch hunt.
A few questions on the special prosecutor, and then we can move on. Have we been given a cost for the special prosecutor?
In the budget, they have said that there's $1 million that they have made available for the special prosecutor. And, you know, they've spent $3 million investigating corruption in the then Stephenson King administration over the airport project. And this is by hiring a former FBI official named Robert Lindquist. I got the name correctly. And Robert Lindquist was investigating the previous airport. And they spent $3 million. The monies, the records of this can be seen in our public documents. But the government has failed to make this report public. And I wonder why. So I want to use your forum to call on the SLP administration to make the Robert Lindquist report public, because having spent $3 million, I think that the people of St. Lucia ought to know what has really come out in that investigation on the Stephenson King administration between 2006 and 2011. You would have also seen that there are two sitting ministers whom were in that said cabinet. So we want to know, is this a move to protect any of those ministers that have now joined the ranks of the SLP? It is very hard for us to realize what's going on. But what we want to know is what has happened to the Robert Lindquist report. The people of St. Lucia ought to know.
I wanted to ask you, do you think that the public of St. Lucia have grown tired of these reports, these investigations, and then taxpayers' money spent and nothing at the end of the day?
People of St. Lucia has grown tired with politics and politicians, and you know, this administration has been given a mandate. And one of the things that they have failed to do is to set a new tone, to reset the political discourse and to speak about the issues, and to really stop the senseless and useless campaigning. I mean, they're in government now, and what I find to be very strange is how much they're still in campaign mode. You could see everything they do is politics and politics and politics. And so when we approach investigations in a very tribal, partisan manner, you will see that the people of St. Lucia will find it very distasteful.
Yeah. And lastly, on the special prosecutor, from your end, from your former tourism minister, MP for Anse la Raye, Canaires, you have nothing to fear with that investigation?
Oh, I welcome the investigation. I want them to begin every investigation. In fact, I will make every record I have available. I will open up all of my assets. I will open up my house. They can come anytime they're ready.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The state of the economy, not inviting for many investors coming in, and very worrisome for us here who live on a day-to-day basis. What more you think can be done by the government to improve the situation and to give some support to citizens at this time?
Well, to answer your question directly, it would be a good time for the government to make good on a lot of its promises that it made during the last general elections. Take, for example, the government said that the whole business of income support of $500 to residents who are not working and unemployed and who would have lost their jobs due to COVID. Well, it's been 365 days and counting, and the government is yet to make good on its promise of $1,500. The Prime Minister has since said he has not said it, but then a tape revealed that he did promise the $1,500 in the market steps. Excise tax for the fishermen would help to reduce their cost of fuel in going to sea and plying their trade, and to bring about some domestic food and to increase the fish production. The government has promised to waive income tax on people making $4,000 or less. The government has yet to do that. In fact, what they have done, they have bumped it up a little bit to just about $2,000 in that ballpark figure. Another broken promise by this administration. They said within 100 days they would give tax returns to the people of this country who had tax returns that the government was owing them money. All tax returns below $5,000. That's what was promised in their manifesto. Now, when you look at what they have offered tax returns below $500, a big difference from $5,000. So we see at every step of the way, this government can be largely characterized by broken promises, by being clueless, and it seems extremely lost in terms of what to do on the issues. We actually, the United Workers' Party, very early on, we proposed a 6-point plan. And in that 6-point plan, one of the things that we suggested was that the VAT had to come down even further, because people are feeling the pinch. You go to the supermarket, you go to the gas stations, you go to every single place where you will be shopping for household commodities, and you find that things have gone up. And, you know, a general cry by people when you go to, supermarkets and other places of trading, you would hear big screams in these places because people are dealing with the very nature of a very high cost of living. Bus fares have gone up. I mean, we see in other Caribbean countries that they have not allowed bus fares to go up. They've capped the price of gas. Today in St. Lucia, we're among one of the highest for gas in the Eastern Caribbean and in CARICOM. This is untenable, and it shows you that our government, they have not managed the situation well, and it really is a reflection on their management of the entire economy. Have you been able to get sugar recently in the supermarket? People are going for sugar, and when you hear the responses by the government, it's pitiful. It's almost an infringement on people's right to tell them when to have sugar and when they shouldn't. So these are some trying times, very difficult times. In fact, the country has reached crisis levels, and so what we need to do is to make sure that we deal with this grave situation before it becomes worse.
You got a sense, Senator, that the government is cash-strapped, that it is low on revenue, and find it difficult to raise funds, hence the need to increase taxes?
Well, no, because the revenue is coming back. You had a disruption to the economy by closing the tourism sector. The tourism sector was 50% back, 47% to be precise. And what we saw in the estimates is that revenue came back by $140 million, almost pre-pandemic levels. So that is really a good plus for the government. And then when you look at that, receipts from tourism is also going to reduce the pressures that you would have had as a country to give income support, because you would have had less people unemployed. When you have more people unemployed, you're collecting more VAT. And so there's this ripple effect on your taxes and your ability to collect revenue. But what is happening, I believe, is you see that the government remains committed to some of its favorite projects. And the government is finding monies where possible to give contracts to its friends. Just look at, who are the people that are making money in this country now.
It's the issue of priorities.
Yeah.
11 minutes before 9, let's open the phone lines and let's talk tourism. I know we have to talk.
Anything you want to go.
We have to talk tourism. You're the former minister. We hosted the now minister, Dr. Hille, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. He gave credit to your administration for the work done in jumpstarting the tourism sector post-COVID. How do you review his performance 12 months on the job?
I'm trying to give everyone a chance, and I'm trying to be kind. But, I'm really worried about what I see. Hotels have reported a good winter. But as a minister, you need to look further down the road than where people's businesses are and how people are reacting to their businesses. I'm worried about our capacity to complete the revitalization of the aviation sector. So when I look, we have jump-started the airlift in making sure we bring new flights from the US that didn't exist before. Not only did we bring existing ones, but we brought back American Airlines at JFK after 27 years. We brought American Airlines for the first time out of Chicago. We brought JetBlue for the first time out of Newark Airport, and the second American Airlines flight from Miami. All of this adding to the air seat capacity of the country, and would have done wonders to ensuring that we had a good winter. The strategy was, whilst the airlines had nowhere to fly, was to move faster than everyone else and go negotiate deals and contracts with the airlines to get them to come to St. Lucia. That worked phenomenally. There's a lot of work to continue. Like, for example, the Canadian numbers are extremely down. The market is not revived. COVID has affected it significantly, but I think the government has got to keep an eye on Canada to revitalize that market. The Caribbean has got some real problems with Liat falling out of the sky. This was inevitable. What I want to caution the government is not to put taxpayers' money into any of Liat's operations, or to put people's money into Liat in shareholding in any way. This has failed in its entire history, and this would only be throwing away the taxpayers' money of the country. We have to look at what Mia Motley and Ralph Gonzalez have done. Principal shareholders, they have said to Gaston Brown, you can have Barbados and St. Vincent share for $1. So it goes to tell you that St. Vincent and Barbados, they have washed their hands with Liat, because Liat just has been a burden on the backs of these taxpayers.
We have a call, Senator. Let's just hold that point, and then we'll get back to it. Good morning. Welcome to the platform. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator Fedee.
Hi, yes, good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
It's very good to hear your voice in the media. I'm calling with specific reference to what's happening at Gropitol and down at Anse la Raye. This is Jimmy Hayes.
Hi, Jimmy. Morning.
Hi there.
Yes.
Morning. I have not heard your voice or that of you as the former Minister of Tourism, since the project down there was sort of tourism-linked, or tourism-based, and I haven't heard the voice of the United Workers' Party, the opposition. It is the opposition which gave permission, or during the administration of the opposition, that Mondesi Estate was giving permission for the development down there. And today, we still are experiencing a certain, basically access. We're having problems with access. Do you know that the Gropitol Nature Trail has been shut down from Anse la Raye?
Well, what I can tell you, this is the party's position on it, is that while you are correct in saying that we continue the process that started under the St. Lucia Labour Party administration by giving approval for the developer to build a private residence. We never ever allowed anyone to block the access to the pitons. That's number one. And number two, we refused the application from the developer for the Queen's Chain or a lease of the Queen's Chain. So
right.
I just want to put those two conditions in there. But now it is for this government to show leadership on this matter, and it is for this government to step in and to clearly articulate where the boundaries are going to be as it pertains to that particular development. But I want to just make it clear to you, Jimmy, and all concerned and all that are listening, that the United Workers' Party, one is we rejected the application for lease of the Queen's Chain, which the developer would have asked for, because we felt that we needed to ensure that the beach there below the pitons remains public and not for private use of any person concerned, regardless of how much money you have. And then number two, we have never ever given the developer permission to block the path going to the trail.
Right. Well, it's not just the path that is blocked to the trail. The road to access the beach is also blocked at a certain point.
Yeah, so I want to use this opportunity to join your voice and to call on the administration to act to make sure that this is done, so that the people in that area can earn their living.
And also to access to the beach is public. It's a vehicular public right of way, because the government, through the Ministry of Physical Development, issued a press statement clarifying the matter as to the access to the beach. Yet that obstacle remains in that that road is still blocked. Mondesi Estates released a statement where it is saying to the Sufra Foundation that all they need to do for the trail to reopen is to maintain it.
Yeah. Jimmy,
They claim that it has not been maintained for more than a year.
We will continue, Jimmy, focusing on that particular issue, and we'll be in very close contact with you in the coming days. Thanks for the call.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and have a great day, Dominic.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Good to hear your voice.
4500777 is our number. We can take a few more calls before we wrap up. Senator, I must question you on the Hyatt development as well at Saint Lucia. Any concerns there? It's now coming back to town.
Well, the previous administration, UWP, I'm very disappointed how this administration has sought the credit. When they would have had a lot of protests against it, they would have on the ground in a lot of grassroots protests, which the SLP sanctioned. Now, it's very, very interesting to see that the same project which they have protested, that they have come now and approved the project. But what's more concerning are the people that are being displaced, those residents who are having to move from the area. What I want to say to you is that we made allowances for them to be relocated to La Fag so that they would have had the opportunity. But, you know, the government has set a precedent with Cabot and Marjorie. Mm-hmm. And I think now that they will have to deal with this in a very consistent manner. And I wait and I look to see, I will cast my final judgment on how the government has handled this. I'm giving them some time. Mm-hmm. But really it is sad to see that the people of that area having to vacate their premises where they've lived for so long. We will be making, I know time is of the essence, we will be making a more comprehensive statement on this, but it is something that remains of deep concern to the United Workers' Party.
Yeah, and we will keep close to you to get that feedback from you once the statement is ready. Few more issues, and hopefully we get a few more calls as well. Julian R. Hunt Highway, I want you to put it into context against the backdrop that we had Julian Alfred coming back home with a silver medal from Commonwealth to lip service, really. And Mr. Hunt, though has made a contribution to St. Lucia, now been given a highway named after him in short space time. You think we dropped the ball with Julian, but seem to have raised the bar with Mr. Hunt?
Well, what I'll say to you is that I grew up in Gros-Islet. I was never a supporter of the SLP, but I believe that Mr. Hunt deserves the recognition. In the UWP, we might disagree on that, but I'm quite familiar with the service he has given to St. Lucia and to the West Indies. I mean, president of the West Indies Cricket Board, the St. Lucia Cricket Association. Mr. Hunt would have made a lot of monies from his private business available to help a lot of people in Gros-Islet, where he represented for many, many years. And as well, would have done a stellar job in the reorganization of the political landscape of St. Lucia, the opposition having been demolished in 1982. And you have to, tip your hat to Mr. Hunt for what he has done in revitalizing the St. Lucia Labour Party. Now, I'm not being partisan. I'm making this comment from the standpoint that in every democracy you need a strong opposition. And even though the United Workers' Party government was at the helm of government at that time, what I will say is that Mr. Hunt would have helped to complete our democracy by reorganizing the SLP. And I think on that alone, he deserves a medal. And, I want to ensure that when people have served, regardless of which side of the political aisle they're on, that you give them the kudos. But having treated Mr. Hunt this way, what I want to decry is how we have dropped the ball on Julian Alfred and how we have clearly missed an opportunity to inspire so many other young people to do greatness and to use her example to catapult St. Lucians to feel great about themselves, St. Lucians to believe that they can accomplish extraordinary things if they implement some of the principles that she has done. Hard work, believing in self, coming from a humble beginning. I mean, she has an incredible story. So it is one that the government has time to repair. I know the Minister of Sport well. I am going to hope that something is done to ensure that we really use this opportunity.
And finally, St. Jude Hospital, do you expect the current government to deliver?
What's happening in St. Jude's is shameful. We are now where we are. Let's forget the past. Let's forget who should have done what and who should have done what. The government is faced with two options. Option one is to go back into the old building, spend $100 million to complete it. But having completed, you still will not have the most ideal hospital because you have a project that has been a crisis. I mean, the roof has been changed 3 times. The walls have been knocked down. The builders there were building without any plans, any drawings. How do you build a hospital like that? So that happened. Now, but then you also have the other option of spending $70 million to complete what is going to be a more modern, a more spacious, a better equipped, a fit-to-purpose building that meets the international standards of St. Lucia, of a hospital. And they've really missed the boat. They've really missed this great opportunity to give the South a hospital that is world-class, a hospital that is state-of-the-art. And I think it's just another example of how the government prioritizes politics, where everything for them becomes political. Basically what the government is saying to the people of St. Lucia, the Labour Party started this one, and let us then show the people that we were right at all costs, regardless of what the outcomes will be. The outcome, right, will only be a disastrous outcome. The outcome is that the people of St. Lucia will have a hospital that was designed as a military barrack. The people of St. Lucia will have a building that wasn't designed for this purpose. We carried on over our development. Now that we have the opportunity, let us now give the people the best hospital. But I don't think that my voice is going to matter. I think that the Philip J. Pierre administration, they have made up their minds. The people of St. Lucia, I know, will judge them harshly for this.
Thank you for being my special guest in studio. We definitely have to bring you back. So much more that we need to discuss with you. The Senator Dominic Fedee, former tourism minister, former member of parliament for Anse la Raye. Canaires, my special guest on Beyond the Headlines today.